Okay, let's talk about men. No, I know it's an obvious joke, but it's definitely overused. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna title the video Jamo Loves Men. We're gonna try to be serious today because this movie interests me greatly, both in and of itself and the way it has been construed by audiences. For some quick context, Men is the third film from director Alex Garland, who made his directorial debut in 2014 with Ex Machina, and it's still one of the greatest films of the last decade. He also made Annihilation, which I recall liking, but I can't summon much of it from the mists of memory now. Point is though, Mr. Garland is one of the most exciting new filmmakers in the game. And when I heard he was making an abstract horror film, I was all in. This is one of my favorite genres, and the idea of a cerebral writer-director with his attention to detail and high level of craft taking a stab at it was very exciting. The story is that a woman, played by Jessie Buckley, goes to stay at an idyllic country house in order to reset her mental and emotional state, having just come out of a physically and emotionally abusive relationship with a man that died, either by accident or suicide, we're not quite sure, inaugurally. On a walk, she is followed home by a naked weirdo, and things just get stranger from there, as the audience will notice when every man in the village is played by the same person, Rory Kinnear. The film then follows what I call the Antichrist model of narrative intensity, where things gradually ramp up into insanity, and the possibilities for metaphorical readings are matched only by the hallucinatory grotesquerie of the on-screen imagery. Now, this might be a good time to address the elephant, and it's a big one. People hate this movie. They hate it with hate in all capital letters. Many people walked out from boredom, others call it purely pretentious trash, and still others simply read the film as preaching a simplistic anti-male message. Let's talk about each of these, and in doing so I can show you why this film is one of the most interesting things I've seen this year. First off, I can't really issue a defense against the boring proclamation. It's just way too subjective. The film is definitely very slow. It lingers upon imagery and sound, and simmers for quite a long time before the roil and boil of the final stretch. I enjoyed this though, not only because I like a slow burn in general, but because the movie is gorgeous. The shots are beautiful, they're simple yet evocative in their framing, and the way the film uses sound in particular to manifest its atmosphere is unparalleled this year. It's been almost a week now, and I can still hear this movie. I can hear the way certain tones and motifs shifted and transformed, creating almost a new subgenre of auditory horror when all was said and done. So technically speaking, the movie is marvelous, as I expected from Garland, so I had no problem with the pacing. Concurrent to the audio-visual is certainly a level of narrative confusion that I felt. As the further we get into the film, the more questions I had about the reality of the scenario. What are these men? Are they the same entity or different shades of it? Is this a monster movie, or are we working in a metaphorical space? And do I need to do some mental work to meet the movie halfway? This is where we breach the topic of what makes something pretentious. I will clue you in on something. I hate this word. Not because it can't be true, there are definitely works of art that I would consider pretentious, but those things are generally defined by an overreaching, where a work pretends to be loftier than it is, without the internal substance to back it up. I don't think Men is pretentious, by that definition, and looking at reviews on YouTube specifically was kind of infuriating in the way that people misunderstood and dismissed it. The idea that the movie is working purely in a space of anti-maleness or exists simply in opposition to toxic masculinity is frustratingly narrow. The movie is indeed called Men, and this probably doesn't help when it's a narrative about a woman being berated and abused by iterations of a singular male entity, but I feel like the forest is being missed for the trees in this instance. Men, to my mind, is not a movie about how men are toxic. It's a movie about the effects of trauma and how those effects of some event or relationship will keep manifesting if you don't deal with them and come to some sort of peace. This is where I might lose some people, and you might write me off just like you did the movie as pretentious, but that's fine. I can handle it. I'm also going to kind of spoil the end here because it's necessary for this explication. In the case of Harper, her trauma has a face, but she's sublimated it. It's the face of her husband. When she goes to a new location, specifically to deal with this exact trauma, every man has the same face and treats her like her husband did, with physical and verbal abuse. The face is not the face of her husband, except it is. We see this through the insane, mind-bending David Lynchian finale, where iterations of these same-faced men birth one and then another, finally culminating in the husband. Do you see it now? Maybe? Hopefully? The trauma was so deep that it manifested in every face, making every face the same. But until she got to the deepest core of that trauma, she couldn't see it for what it was. She couldn't see the true face of it. This is not a movie about how men are evil or a statement on toxic masculinity. It's about a character who happens to be a woman dealing with a specific trauma which was rooted in a man. Trees meet forest. It's bigger. This isn't even touching on the myriad of other motifs and themes the movie plays with, including the mingle of the biblical and the paganistic, where nature and rebirth and the green man who represent those ideas all swirl about the periphery of this story. There's just so much going on here, and even if I'm not sure what to say about all of it, I love when a film alludes to more than it explains, if that makes sense. It all feels cohesive here, even if it is abstract. I get that people don't like a movie when it's working in a purely metaphorical space. That is a valid criticism, but to me this was smart, evocative cinema. And I don't know, even if it's definitely not for everybody, dismissing it out of hand just seems shallow. It's definitely a movie for a very specific audience. I know I'm one of the few. My degrees are in literature, okay, pretentious alert maybe, and I like my art to weird me out, push boundaries, and grow more complex through thoughtful analysis on my part, so this was up my alley. It's not quite on the level of like Antichrist or Valhalla Rising, but it's in the same neighborhood. And if I'm comparing your work to Lars von Trier or Nicholas Winding Refn, you've won pretty big with me. One final thought is just how depressing it is that people walked out of this and are proud of it. In a world of vapid, generic, committee-made garbage with no ideas or soul to speak of, this is the one. This is the movie that gets you angry. Even if you think my reading of it is nonsense, it's still an incredibly well-made movie with a vision and ideas and wild imagery with a real human voice behind it trying to do something different. I bet these same people didn't walk out of Star Wars or Uncharted. Where's the hope? Where is the hope when this is the case? Tell me. Please, cheer me up. I don't know. I'm done. I know it's not as dark as all that. I know people out there love good cinema. It's just frustrating at times. But, you know what? Whatever. That's men. It was never meant for white audiences anyway. I don't know why they put it in theaters, to be honest. It seemed like they were just asking for trouble in this reactionary age. Anyway, that is me done for the day. Blargity blargity. Much love. Hit subscribe to follow me on my cinematic journeys, and I will see you in the next one.